Heyo everybody, Haku here with a Long Tower of God intro before the Long Tower of God intro. I was working out earlier and I kept a notebook by me and just wrote down any thoughts that I wanted to talk about before this week's reaction, because this last chapter and watching everyone's reactions to it left me with a lot to think about. And I just, wrote down quick notes of anything I wanted to talk about because I knew it would be a lot. And I was like, I don't want to save all of this for the intro to the reaction because it could be like 30 minutes for all I know. So this, you're going to see me, I'm just going to yap on about Tower of God stuff and make connections between various things we've seen or various things we know. Just talk about Tower of God in a general sense, maybe some theory here, just a bit of discussion. If you're interested in just popping in and listening, I'm not really gonna, this is kind of off the cuff. I'm not gonna throw a bunch of stuff on screen. I just have little bullet points here that I want to talk about. And yeah, I guess that's the general idea. So one thing that I talked to Naya about, one thing that I talked in Ron Can's chat about, is character rankings, as in not which character's your favorite, but where characters lie in the Tower's rankings. I mentioned this before too on Discord, and to a lot of people that have been watching I've mentioned this, where I was I had an idea to go through and rank all of the high rankers, say where I thought they would land. So maybe last month or something, I was like, you know what, now that I have the new setup, now that I'm making multiple videos a day most days, I was like, let me think about doing this project seriously. So I went to take some notes, and I'm like, I do not know how to make this into a good video. I really don't. Because then you run into characters I will use Wee Wee as an example. Wee Wee could be rank 124 in the Tower or 421 in the Tower, and I have no concept or way to tell. You would think, oh, high ranker. Oh, the influence would be fairly high because they're a branch leader of a great family. But then again, we just don't know. And the defeat of some of these branch leaders was so unceremonious that it's I don't know, not all the branch leaders were treated equally in their presentation, some of the more recent ones compared to the presentation of, say, Dakoko, who a lot of people still hype up and say, nah, Dakoko should be rated higher than you're giving him credit for, even though we have nothing really concrete to go upon by it. But I wanted to talk about this because I think people are really underrating Kirin and maybe some of the potential revolution stuff. But also, some of, again, Naya and Ron said, oh, it could be a good collab stream or something just to talk about and argue about where to rank these different characters. And if I did do something like that in the future, if somebody else did something I would want to have so many different people in here. And I'm that might turn into a mess too, because I'd have 6 different people in here if I did something like that. So I don't know, but I think I've been saying for a while now that, we kind of know the top 20-ish. So we know the top 17 for sure. And the top 17 fall into kind of 4-ish categories. I mean, there's Enryu Phantominium, the irregulars that have wider lore stuff going on that we're probably not going to honestly see that much of. I mean, who knows how much Enryu we could get in the future, truth be told. But if he really is that strong, it's I can't see us seeing that much of him. But then on top of that, you've got the 2 strongest princesses and an Adori. You've got, I guess it's really the 2 strongest princesses, and it is faction leaders. It's Zahard and the 10 family heads. It's the 3 lords, or one of the 3 lords that we know of. Malik 1 PGR is there. And it's the leader of FUG and the 2 leaders of Wall Hikesong. That's who is in the top 17 that we know of. There are 2 family heads that aren't there, Traumare and Arihan. I think those are the 2 lowest ranked family heads, probably because Traumare spends so much time inactive. He spends so much time just hanging out in his room. And for Arihan, it's probably because we know that Arihan and the Ari family are pacifists. And we know that while influence plays a big role, combat ability also plays a big role, because that's one of the things that people argue about is oh, who's stronger, En or Adori or whatever. Combat does play a role, not just influence. And again, that's why somebody like En is so high, because En doesn't really have that much influence. I mean, maybe pre-being sealed, but En is just really, really freaking strong. The blood of 3 irregulars. She is just really strong. And that's one of the reasons she's so highly ranked. And again, Adori has a lot of influence, but Adori's ranking is pretty wild. She is really up there. But I think, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, I think those next five are arguably going to be Arihan and Traumerei. I don't really see them being lower than like 22. And probably maybe the other two of the three rulers, again assuming that doesn't get retconned. Some people are convinced that's going to get retconned, but I don't think so. I think we're still going to see Malik 1 PGR, Juchun, and Flux. I think we're still going to see them because Siyu kind of had his idea for the setup from the beginning, and while the only thing I can really think of that really got retconned was Yama's backstory, basically everything else we've gotten, as far as like basic setup goes, has gone to the structure. Like, it's gone according to the structure of the blog posts. So I think they're there. And the last place is maybe Quadrado. We know Quadrado climbed the tower with the 10 family heads. We know that he had an S rank weapon, which is really, really rare, even among the highest ranked people. And we know that he was defeated by Yurik in the past, but again, that's Yurik. It's like, again, Kilhillam gets defeated by Zahar, and I count that as a like plus towards Kilhillam, because it's like, okay, you lost to him, but it was Zahard. So, or like, if I'm saying like, if I say that I think Yurik would beat Mircea, and I do, as much as I'm an FUG fanboy, as much as I'm a Mircea fanboy, I think if they fought each other, that Yurik would win, but Yurik would actually have to go all out. I think Yurik would actually have to bust everything out to beat Mircea, but he would win. And again, I don't count that as a knock against Mircea, because that means like, he's up there. And I think that this is where, and then we don't know if characters like Mixeth even has a rank. I think maybe not. Or Ashilidwaru, does he actually have a rank? So I don't know if those two have ranks. But then we're like in the 23 to 50 range, and I think in that range, we're going to see like 1 to 3 members of each of the great families, then maybe a couple more special cases. Like, we know that one of the princes, we know that Aryeh Hagafarion Zahard is there. I think that it'd be nice to have another Slayer up there, because some of the Slayers have been kind of, like, people joke about them not being very strong, but the thing is, they've been up against really, really strong opponents. Like, Karaka's been shafted time and time again. I think having, like, Immort or somebody, like, in the rank 30s to 40s area, something like that would be nice to have. Just have another Slayer up there. But I think it's going to be like 1 to 3 members of each of the 10 great families. Like, maybe less for some of them. Like, there might only be 1, if that, from Hendo Lock, since we know that there aren't that many strong Hendo Locks. There aren't many that live that long. And I think maybe like 3 for some of the families that are like the Kun, Ha, and REA, that have been said since the beginning that those 3 have stronger overall fighting forces. I think that we might see like 3 in the top 50 for them. But I really think we've seen 2 each in the top 50 from Pobedao and Lopobia. I think Kirin and Lobadan are up there, and I think that Proust and Dumas are up there. Because here's the thing. So to talk about some of the feats we've seen from these characters, we've been told that Proust is one of the strongest light bearers in the tower. So Proust has that. We haven't seen a lot out of Proust yet, but Dumas took down 2 branch leaders with ease while at a disadvantage. Again, not even really particularly using Rosario that much, not using his real body. He probably has a lot more he can pull out. Traumerei pulled out, like, he took out multiple of Traumerei's monsters he was using, or Shinwei was using, even including Vanquish, which is something that Traumerei brought out against Gustang. He took that out in just his base armor form. Again, not igniting Rosario, not going into his like energy ignited whatever armor form. He just base armor form took out Vanquish. So I think these characters are up there. I think the 4 that I mentioned, the top 2 from each of these families, I think they could fight a family head. I think they would lose, but I think they could fight a family head. Like, I think if it wasn't interrupted, if Dumas and Traumerei really fought each other, Dumas hadn't busted out his armor thing yet, hadn't busted out his real body, hadn't busted out Rosario's, who knows how many cool spears he might have, or Rosario's ignition. He hadn't done any of that. I think that he could make Traumerei take him seriously. I think he could push Traumerei. I think Traumerei is winning. I think Traumerei is beating Dumas, period. But I think that Traumerei actually has to try to beat Dumas. And the same goes with Gastang, and I think the same goes for Lobadan and Kirin. I think that, again, if Kirin fought Traumerei, getting into the revolution stuff, I think that Traumerei beats Kirin. Traumerei's beating his kids, oh no. I think Traumerei beats Kirin, but I think that he has to try. I think that he has to try. If Kirin busts out everything, Traumerei doesn't just like completely wipe him. He has to actually somewhat take him seriously. And I think that Lobadan's up there too. Again, some more of these feats that we saw, and I think Yama's getting up into this top 50 range, but I'll talk about that in a second, because we saw, okay, with the Shipwan Ryu, it has this Shinwan Ryu attack that it like lets a burst out. And the first time we saw it, Traumerei's like, that's Shinwan Ryu. That's Shinwan Ryu. So that's what happens the first time we see it. But then when we see it again and they try to use it when like Michel is picking up Richemont and Richemont has the book to give to Gastang. When we see it there, when we have that, then they use it. And unless my memory's, failing me, Lobadan pulls out the horn that he always carries on him and he blocks it. So Lobadan can block this big Shinwan Ryu attack. And again, the idea that a Tower-born person can block Shinwan Ryu in general. So Lobadan can block Shinwan Ryu, which is a crazy strong feat. Again, I think if Lobadan fights Traumerei or if Lobadan fights Gastang, I think that Gastang or Traumerei would win, but I think that they would have to take Lobadan seriously. And now I think Yama's getting up there because when we're first introduced to Yama, we're told that Doom was top 200 in his prime, when he was peak Doom. And Yama beat peak Doom. Yama beat top 200 Doom. So Yama was already up there. Yama's already like top 200. Plus he has the influence of being a slayer of FUG and everything. Yama was already up there. But then he can't hang with Yusracha quite yet. Yusracha does have like the kind of elemental advantage over him, so to speak. But I think that the what are they, squadron commanders? I think the squadron commanders are easily top 100. I would put them in like the 70-ish area when we talk about like Liboric and Yusracha and Calavan. I think that those three are like probably around like 70-ish. I think that they are all maybe not in this top 50, like top tier, but they are extremely strong. I would put them there. But then Yama was keeping up with Yusracha once he got Doom's Fang, and then he has two Fangs. So we have one Fang Yama already top 200, two Fang Yama, he's starting to fight top 100 characters, and now we have post-Nap Yama, presumably third Fang Yama, and he's now busting through Proust's shield. Proust was said to be one of the strongest light bearers in the tower. And again, he is constantly called the Pobedal's number 2, whereas Pobedal's number 3 is Dumas. And Dumas's actual ranking might not be top 50 because they, like Kilhelm said, that it's been dropping in recent years or something. So there is the chance that, because of inactivity, it's not as high. But when it comes to strength, I think Dumas is up there with the others because it is said he's number 3 in the family. And I'm thinking that probably includes Gastang, but I'm not completely sure, It's like, whoa, what is... Did you see that flickering light? What was that? I don't see it in reality, just on screen, just on the OBS preview. I guess it was trying to fix the lighting or something, because I moved my hand. That was crazy. Sorry about that distraction. But, yeah, where was I? Yeah, I think that Dumas and I think Yama's getting up there. So now Yama, he again busts through that shield. He takes out the ancient weapon, and also really telling, like I said about Lobadan before, when we have the Shinwan Ryu or the Shipwan Ryu doing that Shinwan Ryu burst, Yama tanks it. Everything around him, all these other ships and everything, are completely turned to dust. They crumble to atoms, but Yama tanks it and is still standing with the rest of the characters on that side when Revolution shows up. So Yama is strong enough now to tank Shinwanryu, to tank a Shinwanryu burst from the ship Wanryu, much like Lobodon was able to block it in the past. So again, I think Yama at this point, with presumably all three parts of the Fang, is up there. I think he's up there now. I think he's to the point, even before when he had two Fangs, he was able to take out Kraken. Of course, Traumerei can just regen his Shinwei, but the fact that he was able to take out Kraken back then in general is impressive. And Yama's come a long way since then. I still don't think Yama's strong enough to beat Traumerei, but I think he's getting up there. I think he's getting close. So we have all of those. Literally, I have a bunch of bullet points, and that was kind of one of my first ones. But one thing that's important here to mention with Revolution, and Revolution taking out, supplanting the family heads, becoming the new family heads and everything. It's do I think the boss is strong enough to beat Zahard? Probably not. It'd be too easy. Is Kirin strong enough to defeat Traumerei? Is a really good example because we know more about them. I don't think so. Again, like I said, I think Traumerei beats Kirin, but I think Traumerei has to take him seriously. But you know what? We're not just talking about Kirin when it comes to Revolution. We just learned in the most recent chapter that Bellerir said they learned about new technology. We know now they have the ship Wanryu. They have the artificial Shinwanryu that Rachel was able to use. So take Kirin with artificial Shinwanryu weapons, maybe specifically tailored to try to take down the irregulars, then that might close the gap a little bit. So when it comes to the members of Revolution, we might not just be talking about can Kirin beat Traumerei? No. Can the boss beat Zahard? No. But can they beat them if they have specifically made anti-irregular weaponry with Shinwanryu? It might close the gap. I still think, though, narrative-wise, I think that they're being brought into the story. The idea behind them is we're having this kind of a minor, this mini Zahard and mini 10 family heads for Bomb and his allies to have to deal with before dealing with the actual Zahard and 10 family heads. And when I said that, there were some people saying, why do you think Revolution are bad guys? Why do you think they're against Bomb? I don't know if they're necessarily bad guys, but I've said before, the difference between FUG and Revolution, FUG just wants to kill Zahard and the 10 family heads. That's it. They just want to kill him. And they don't really care how the tower is run after that. The tower can run itself. FUG doesn't care. They just want to take them out. They don't want to do a revolution or whatever. But Revolution wants the tower to continue. They just want to take out Zahard and the 10 family heads, and they want to be the ones ruling. Now, I don't think that means... I think much like every other faction, they're going to be characters that are pretty evil and characters that are good, arguably. At least as good as you can be in Tower of God. Everybody's got blood on their hands to some degree. But I don't necessarily think they're going to be evil, but I do think they're going to be against Bomb. First reason why, Rachel's a part of them. Easy. And then the second reason why is that Bomb's allies are here to stop this war. Lobodon is here to stop this war. Yurik is here to hunt the people who are orchestrating this war, thus stopping this war. And we know that that's Revolution. That's Kirin and Bellerir have been doing that since the whole time we've been reading. So Kirin and Bellerir have been doing that. Revolution's been doing that. And it's obviously Bomb is going to side with Yurik and Lobodon, to me. Bomb's going to side with Yurik and Lobodon. And if Revolution are the enemies to Yurik and Lobodon, Bomb's going to be against Revolution. Again, especially since Rachel's a part of that whole thing. And again, talking about characters that I think are, good, I think most of the people we've seen in Revolution are we want to take out the 10 family heads because their immortality's messed up. It messes up the natural order of things. The new generation needs to take over. I think that people like Kirin, I think Kirin has daddy issues. He wants to go against Traumerei and he wants to take over and be in power. But I think that there are characters, we've already seen Gororo. I think that Gororo legitimately believed in the cause. I think Gororo really thought that Revolution was a good cause, a good thing. So we have seen characters that I think are on the good side of the spectrum as far as Revolution goes. There's probably so much that I'm forgetting and that I'm forgetting to think about. Oh yeah, where does Macheni line up in all of this? Because Macheni met the boss at the end of the nest, but Macheni to me, it always felt like climbing to higher floors, getting the 13 months together. It always felt like that was kind of on the page for Macheni. She did want war, but I think Macheni's war was just to shake the tower up. I don't really know if she wanted it in the same way that Revolution wants it. So I don't know where Macheni stands. Does she fall in with Revolution? Does she actually like what they've got going on? I don't really know. And then also, I wanted to say, we learned this chapter, we had Tiara saying that confirmation, she's a riding person, and that Gustang hasn't had any kids, any actual real physical kids, since Eurasia N. So some people are saying, is Eurasia N Gustang's only kid? And I don't think so. Like, only actual physical kid, not riding person. And I don't think so because of two reasons. First, we learned recently within the past however many months that Yulia Zahard, that was Popodal. The Popodal family are the ones, remember Reflejo's backstory? When Reflejo looked at Yulia, so they killed his people and took his eyes? That was the Popodal family, and Yulia was said to be a princess candidate, and we know that since Eurasia N, there haven't been any princess candidates other than Tiara, and Tiara turned it down. So the fact that Yulia is a princess candidate means that Yulia was pre-Eurasia N. Also, there's the fact that we know that Zahard and the Ten Family Heads came into the tower tens of thousands of years ago. How many tens of thousands? Is it 20,000? Is it only 10,000? Is it 70,000? We don't know, but it was in the tens of thousands. It was in the 5 digits when Zahard and the Ten Family Heads came in. The Eurasia N incident was around 5,000 years ago, so there are thousands of years before that. And in the discussion of thousands of years before that, there's the War of Genesis, where Zahard and the Ten Family Heads were colonizing the tower, taking over the land, saying, hey, we're the kingdom in charge of all of this now. We have the War of Genesis, and Liboric was already an adult by the time of the War of Genesis. So Liboric is much older than Eurasia N. We don't know if Liboric's Gustang's child with a member of the, like, did he have a kid with one of Edwan's daughters? We don't know the exact way that we got to Liboric, but Liboric's really powerful, so he's maybe a direct child of Gustang. And we know that, again, Liboric is probably thousands of years older than Eurasia N. So now that we know that Yulia had to have existed before Eurasia N, there's so Yulia had to exist before Eurasia N, Liboric had to exist before Eurasia N. With all of those in mind, it seems like there are probably children who aren't riding people, and there's kind of something that I was thinking about. Lobadan, I think Lobadan and Kidian are legitimately some of Traumare's oldest children. Lobadan looks like an old man. Are there children of some of the family heads that have died of old age by now? Like, is that a thing? Is that possible? Are there children of the family heads who have just died of old age at this point? Also, there's the fact that with the Popodal family, we were told that the people who are riding people are the head librarians. We now know that Dumas and Tiara count there. Proust probably counts there. We know for sure that Michel and Richemont were there. But we've met characters that were called first-class librarians, not head librarians, like Varan and Ruini, who were high rankers. They were strong. They were high rankers. But they weren't head librarians. And there's also the fact that there's a bunch of just nobody Popodal characters. And that makes me think, do the writing people have children of their own, and that's how we get these random Popodal characters? Or are they descendants of original children of Gustang who have maybe even already died by this point? Are they just, like, again, the Popodal bloodline being diluted down? It's not like he wrote the entire family into existence and gave them all a part of himself. It's like, oh yeah, this random Popodal guy living on the battleship is the embodiment of Gustang's mediocrity or something. Like, with all of that in mind, it just feels like there are characters that are probably either descendant of the writing people or just I don't know why this lighting keeps like flashing. I have no idea what's going on. So sorry about that if it's annoying to all of you watching. Another thing to talk about is the red light district. And with the red light district, we're gonna be talking about Bellerir because Bellerir is from there. He talks about the endless red lights, people dying there. Is it part of some experiment? I've, again, watching reactions, listening to all of you in the comments, I've been getting multiple different theories. People saying, is it a place that produces clones? And is Bellerir a Gaston clone of some kind? Same with the bosses, Karaka, Wangnan. Do they produce actual children? And I think it's actually kind of cool. The name Red Light District, not just like the actual physical red lights, might be a reference to, of course, for those of you that don't know, a red light district is typically a place with like brothels and prostitution and stuff, historically. And so, you know, just like in reality, you would have red light districts producing illegitimate heirs to these rich and powerful people in politics or military or whatever that go there. You could have the name Red Light District. It isn't like, I don't think it's an actual red light district in the sense, in like the real world sense, but I think that the name could be a play on words because it's a place that produces illegitimate heirs to important people in the tower. Whether it does so by cloning or by having actual children is questionable. It could be by having actual children. We know that the 10 families do a lot of weird, messed up experiments. Look at the princess system to begin with. And I've always looked at Wang Nan's mother and I'm like, Wang Nan's mother died mysteriously. Is that because she had a kid with Zahard? They said that any woman from the tower who had a kid with Zahard would die. How do they know that unless they tried? So is Wang Nan a legitimate child of Zahard? The mother just died because she had his kid. And we also have evidence of this with one of the family heads. We know that Arihan had Ju Chun with a tower native, and the tower native who had Ju Chun died, which means that Ju Chun is like half sibling to Ha Yurin's two children. So we know that Arihan had a child with a tower inhabitant who died having that child. So if that's the case, is that just something that happens? And again, are they producing, again, in some sort of experiment, maybe, maybe not, producing heirs to Zahard and the 10 family heads? Again, Bellerir could be that. I don't necessarily like the direct clone theory, but I also think it kind of makes sense. I think illegitimate children of Zahard that they were producing with mothers is really messed up, but it also makes sense and is kind of where I'm going with most. Something else that people have brought up is that when Wang Nan's mother died in his flashback, so let me kind of recap this flashback a little because it might help. So Wang Nan told Karaka that first his mother took him and raised him, and he doesn't remember where they came from, but she says that they came from the Red Light District and it burned down when he was too young to remember. So Wang Nan doesn't remember it, but he says it burned down, or that's what his mother told him. And that's the first big important thing of like maybe 4 big important things. Next big important thing is that he says that she died mysteriously one day, and she must have been hiding an illness or something. Again, if she had Zahard's child, could she have maybe died because of that? Again, if this is a place where they're running experiments, could she have been somebody that was a part of the experiments who grabbed a baby Zahard, whether it's a clone or an actual child of his? Could she have stolen Wang Nan? Could she have stolen a Zahard clone from this red light district and ran away from it and just said, oh yeah, burned down? There's something like that. The third big important thing after her dying mysteriously is that Wang Nan's like, I call her my mother, but she probably wasn't my real mother. She was probably just a nanny or something. And Karaka gets really serious and says, that woman wasn't just some nanny. And I've always said that there's 2 big ways to interpret it. Either A, that woman's not just some nanny, as in, that is actually Wang Nan's real mother, his actual birth mother. That could be potentially it. And the second other big way that you could interpret it is that she is somebody, she's not just some nanny, she's an important person. So I think whether it's his real mother or whether it's an important person, and those two aren't mutually exclusive, I think Wang Nan's mother is going to be really important. I really do. I think she is going to be important, especially like with the design we saw on her. I think she's going to be important. And the fourth important thing that people have been bringing up, after Wang Nan's mother dies, Wang Nan says that he met a man, and the man that he met said if he, and like Wang Nan's mother is the one who gave him the ring, but he met a man, and the man said, if you meet anyone else that has the same ring as you, ask them to confirm it. And that's all he said to him. But if you see the silhouette of the guy that Wang Nan met after his mom died, who mentioned the ring to him, so again, he knows about the rings, that silhouette looks kind of like the outline of the boss that we see showing up now. So that could be deliberate, and the boss could, like the current one that we're seeing, not the one way back in Dewan's flashback, assuming that's somebody different. The one that we're seeing now could be the man that Wang Nan met that commented on his ring. So there is all of that. That's all important from Wang Nan's backstory. Let's see, was there anything else? I've kind of gone a little bit out of order and everything, talking about Revolution and the boss, and I'm sure I probably even forgot things. I've been so unorganized. Speaking about things, I mentioned this a little earlier, or actually, before I go on to that, there's something else to do with the red light district. So, the people dying under the red lights, they could be trying to make something. Are they maybe trying to make devils? Because FUG found the blue Thrissa on the second floor. When Bomb first met the blue Thrissa, he said it was a red light. And then, when Bomb first talks to the blue Thrissa, he's like, you're that red light I saw, right? And the blue Thrissa's like, yeah. So, I find it weird that it's the red light district. Hockney's painting is also called the red light. And then, at least I'm pretty sure Hockney's painting is called the red light. But the blue Thrissa was a red light. That makes me think, is there some connection there between the blue Thrissa and whatever's going on at the red light district? So we've got that stuff there. And then, yeah, I mean, I guess that's all that... I guess that's all there is to say about the blue Thrissa. It's weird. What are the Thrissa? Are they devils? We still don't know what devils are. He's called a Thrissa. We know that the red Thrissa is a remnant of the guardian of the 43rd floor once it was killed. So are they all related to the guardians somehow? And then what are devils? I'll get into that in a second. I want to talk about the devil stuff because that's really weird, because we have like gods and devils. We have like the machine god, the god of nature, and again, I'll get into that in a second. I wanted to say, I mentioned before, how the only real thing I can think of that's like really been retconned from the blog post is Yama's backstory. But again, Yama's still Yama. His backstory just got retconned. One thing that I think if anything is going to get retconned after Floor of Death, I think it's Arie Hohnzahard. In the blog post, it says that Arie Hohnzahard is the first princess. Some people say Horn Zahard, but it is written Hone with the same characters as Arie Hone, Honak Raptor. A lot of people say, okay, she was the first princess, and I think that's going to get retconned, because one of the things we learned in Floor of Death is that Eurasia N confronted Zahard when she found out about the incident that killed the first generation of princesses, and Zahard fessed up to it. Zahard told Eurasia N, oh yeah, I was behind the incident that killed the first generation of princesses. So if the first generation of princesses is dead, maybe Arie Hone will be written into a flashback, but I think she's probably already dead. If she even existed in the actual real story and doesn't get retconned. I think that the first generation are dead. There was an incident that killed them. Zahard was behind it. That's part of what set Eurasia N off. So I do think that's going to be one of the first things that gets retconned, and this connects into the Devils, because I've always had this theory. We know that to have an ignition weapon, you need to have a soul to ignite it. And that's why Bomb has the blue Thrissa. FUG put the blue Thrissa into him because he needed a devil to ignite the thorn for him. And that's also why Karaka's segment of FUG was going to melt Bomb down into the thorn to make it into an ignition weapon, because they needed the soul in the thorn. So in order to have the soul in the thorn, that's why Bomb got the blue Thrissa. And it's weird that blue Thrissa was later on called blue Thrissa, just like red Thrissa, and can be used as a transformation the way Bomb uses it, is really interesting. But Yeah, so Blue Thrisso was some sort of devil, some sort of Thrisso, whatever. They needed the soul. So one of my theories has been, we know an incident killed the first generation of princesses. We know that the 13-month series are ignition weapons. And in order to be ignition weapons, you need a soul within it. And we have seen the soul of the Black March and the Green April, and they look like young women, young girls. So it's like, who were the Black March? Who was the Green April? Like, were they the first generation princesses? Was the incident with Zahard and everything that they made the first generation princesses into the 13 months? That they put their souls into the 13 months? Is that possible? Because it feels like the 13 months kind of predate the princess system a bit. So again, we don't know the timeline of all this, but that's sort of something I've been thinking. And that's what gets us into devils. What the heck are devils? What is hell? How and why does hell exist? So we're going to get into Daniel's flashback here. Daniel got back on the train to look for Rowan. He died. They actually, actually rereading, they confirmed that he died and he went to hell. And while he was in hell, he met Joaquin. And Joaquin gave him his, necromancy power, the power that he uses when we see him in the main story. But then when he frees Joaquin, Joaquin's like, oh man, I didn't expect Daniel to free me. I haven't seen you in forever. And Daniel doesn't, they make a point actually, that Joaquin doesn't remember talking to Daniel in hell. Joaquin wasn't in hell. He doesn't remember any of that. He was sealed this whole time in that room. So who talked to Daniel? If Joaquin doesn't remember it, was it a devil pretending to be Joaquin? Was it a devil taking Joaquin's form to talk to Daniel to give him the necromancy powers? And again, Daniel, is this devil a god of hell? Because again, we know there's the machine god, the god of nature. Is there a god of hell? Is there an actual devil? Because Daniel actually died and was brought back to life. The only time we know of that happening was with Bomb. It's wild that he died and was brought back to life. And again, had a vision or talked to Joaquin, who wasn't actually Joaquin, wasn't actually really there. And again, we have Joaquin, in order to get his powers to fuse with his siblings to become white, Joaquin made a deal with a devil, like an actual devil. So what, not even the devil that was put, the devil that was split in two and put into Horyang and Kasano, the devil that is the Blue Thrissa that was put into Bomb. There was an actual devil, a quite literal devil that Joaquin made a deal with. So what is that? What is the devil as far as Tower of God goes? So yeah, this turned into a very long video. I think that's all that I wrote down. So this was all random stuff to talk about in the intro. It turned into a mess of a video, especially that first part. I pulled it together towards the end, I think, but I was just trying to get through all this random Tower of God discussion. I thought about doing it as a stream, but then I'd have to plan out when to do it ahead of time, and and I would have wanted to get more people in here to talk about it with, but then I don't want to invite some people and leave other people out. And I was like, it's too much to think about. I'm just going to do it as a random video. So yeah, if you liked the video, thank you for sitting through it. I know it was an absolute rambling mess, an absolute disaster, but I'm going to cobble it together and you can listen to it when you want to listen to it. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, comment down there. Tell me what you thought of all my thoughts here. Tell me what your thoughts are on all of this stuff. There's probably stuff towards the front of the discussion that you probably forgot about already, truth be told, because I might have. But subscribe for more Tower of God, much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. If you want a link to the Discord server, it's free and open for anyone. If you want to help support the channel, drop a super thanks down below if you'd like to. Or if you want One Piece videos early, if you want a shout out at the end of every video, then hit join down below to become a member. Go to patreon.com/Haku of the Tubes. The link will be in the description to become a patron. Thank you so much to people who are patrons and channel members. Thank you to Chosen Regular Evan Holly, Magical Girls, Effernono, Abyss Knight, and J.A. Charities students, David Langstaff and Folded Gold, Slayer candidates, SG and Stan Cedar, and Pure Element, Pateo Diallo. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.